Power does not persuade. It conducts. It does not argue. It arranges. The powerful do not chase influence. They orchestrate it one gesture, one silence, one precisely measured breath at a time. To understand this is to step into Machiavelli's blueprint, the study of invisible strings, the anatomy of control so refined that others never realize they are dancing to your rhythm. Every empire begins in the mind of one who refuses to be reactive. Reaction is slavery disguised as passion. The powerful do not react, they design. Before they speak, they have already defined the frame of conversation. Before they move, they have already shaped the emotional terrain. The world becomes a chessboard, not because they dominate others, but because they see what others are blind to. The structure beneath chaos. Influence, in its purest form, is architecture. It's the ability to create environments where outcomes unfold naturally toward your favor. Not through coercion, but through gravity. You build systems, images, expectations, so calibrated that resistance dissolves before it begins. To orchestrate influence is to understand that humans obey patterns long before they obey commands. They seek hierarchy, they crave certainty, and they bend subtly to confidence that asks for nothing. This is why the loud are ignored and the calm are obeyed. The first law of orchestration: never compete for attention. Become the structure attention orbits. Lesser men shout to be heard. The powerful shape silence so that every whisper belongs to them. They do not interrupt noise, they redirect it. They construct an image so disciplined that others project significance into every motion. The glance, the pause, the refusal to rush. Every gesture becomes a declaration. I am not one of you. I am the gravity you move around. Machiavelli understood that power cannot survive visibility. The moment you must prove dominance, you have already lost it. The prince's control comes from perception, the illusion of inevitability. People must feel that your rise is not an act of aggression, but an act of nature. The mountain does not compete, it simply stands, and all roads must bend around it. Influence begins not with words, but with composition, how your presence alters the emotional geometry of a room. Stand still long enough, and people will begin to organize themselves around your stillness. They adjust tones, temper expressions, lower their laughter. Why? Because control is contagious. Those who can regulate their energy bend those who cannot. The calm man rules the anxious one. The collected voice silences the frantic. Machiavelli would have called it governing appearances. Today, it's called emotional calibration. Whatever the name, the law remains. Mastery of influence begins with mastery of state. If you cannot command yourself, you cannot orchestrate anyone else. This is why powerful people treat their emotions as soldiers, disciplined, obedient, never unsupervised. Rage becomes a blade. Sadness becomes reflection. Even joy is rationed, deployed with strategic precision. They never leak energy, because energy that leaks is energy that submits. And in a world where perception is currency, the slightest emotional debt can cost your throne. The second law: build control through rhythm, not rules. Influence cannot be forced through instruction. It must be conducted through tempo. The powerful man knows when to accelerate tension and when to let it breathe. He understands that people do not obey ideas, they obey pacing. Too much speed breeds panic. Too much calm breeds stagnation. True control lies in timing. The weak interrupt moments. The powerful create them. Think of the great rulers, strategists, leaders who shaped eras, not because they shouted, but because they understood timing, like an artist understands silence in music. Every meeting, every negotiation, every appearance was designed to land precisely when impact was inevitable. They did not wait for moments, they engineered them. To orchestrate influence is to think in layers. You are not just managing actions, you are curating perception. When others speak, you observe rhythm. When others react, you calculate delay. Every beat becomes an opportunity to tighten or loosen the psychological frame around you. Because power is not maintained through control, it is maintained through expectation. When people expect your response, you've lost control. When they can't predict it, they revolve around it. That uncertainty breeds deference. It is why mystery outlasts charisma. So, the powerful cultivate deliberate unpredictability, not chaos, but rhythmical variance. They never move the same way twice. One day generous, another day distant. One day visible, another day gone. The inconsistency is not weakness. It is design. It conditions others to stay alert, to anticipate, to seek approval without ever feeling secure. Control through expectation means others start to adjust themselves to your unknowns. They prepare for you. They wait for you. They fear the silence that follows your name. The third law: separate emotion from expression. The prince, who smiles when pleased and frowns when angered, is already a slave to his face. Machiavelli warned that transparency kills authority. When people can read you, they can manipulate you. The powerful become mirrors, reflecting others' emotions without showing their own. When insulted, they blink once. When praised, they nod once. When confronted with chaos, they look unshaken. Their neutrality becomes myth. People begin to assume they know something others don't, and in that assumption lies obedience. Because humans do not follow what they understand. They follow what they fear, and they fear what they cannot read. Power begins with this illusion that you are never fully visible, and that illusion, over time, becomes real. Because the more you practice restraint, the more your mind detaches from reaction. You cease to be participant, you become observer, and the observer always has the advantage. Every master of influence, from emperors to CEOs, understood this. The battlefield is not in words or actions, but in the interpretations you allow to form around you. You don't fight for truth, you curate belief. To orchestrate influence is to design meaning. Each silence you hold becomes a mirror others fill with their imagination. Each refusal to explain becomes a story told in your favor. Explanation weakens mystique, clarity destroys awe. Let people interpret you incorrectly, it's cheaper than convincing them otherwise. When others define you, they reveal themselves. When you define yourself, you expose your limits. So say less, move slower. Speak only when silence has made them lean forward. When they finally crave your words, each syllable becomes doctrine. This is the Machiavellian blueprint, not of tyranny, but of precision. Powerful people do not dominate through force, they dominate through composition. Their every act is a note in a larger symphony of control, measured, intentional, and exact. The weak try to persuade, the powerful conduct, and the world, without realizing it, learns to move to their rhythm. Influence begins long before you speak. It begins in the minds of those who have already decided who you are, and the powerful understand this fundamental truth. Control the story, and you control the room. Machiavelli never saw power as the act of domination. To him, it was a theater, an elegant illusion where the prince directs both the stage and the spectators. The world is not led by truth. It is led by perception. Those who understand this rule don't waste energy proving themselves. They invest in crafting the narrative that others will believe for them. Your reputation is your first weapon. It precedes you like a herald. It speaks before you enter. But unlike charm or charisma, reputation is not built. It is engineered. The powerful treat reputation like architecture. Every rumor, every silence, every reaction is a brick. They never allow randomness. If people are going to talk, they will talk according to design. There are 3 layers to perception: presence, symbol, and myth. Presence is immediate. It is the impact of your physical and energetic gravity. Symbol is sustained. It's the image of you that lingers in the minds of others when you're not there. Myth is eternal. It's the version of you that survives beyond fact. The echo of power that reshapes the way people act in your absence. To orchestrate influence, you must master all 3. Presence begins with precision. The powerful are not expressive. They are composed. Their stillness is a kind of violence, and a reminder that movement is earned, not given. When they walk, they measure the space. When they speak, they select words like ammunition. Their tone carries weight because it is rare. Everything about them communicates ownership of time, the pause before the sentence, the lack of fidgeting, the refusal to rush. Presence is about implying that you are never in a hurry, because the world moves on your schedule. People read presence as proof of authority. The nervous reveal themselves by speed. The confident rule through delay. That's why Machiavelli taught that the prince must appear calm even when afraid, because fear can be hidden, but desperation cannot. To build presence, you must first disarm your dependence on approval. The weak look for signs that they are being received. The powerful impose reception. They never ask, "Am I being understood?" They let silence confirm it. Their validation is internal, their composure unshaken by perception. The second layer is symbol. Symbols are how the powerful outsource memory. They build images that do the speaking for them. The king's crown, the general's uniform, the CEO's silence, all symbols of hierarchy. But modern power requires subtler craftsmanship. Your symbol is no longer physical, it's behavioral. A habit, repeated with precision, becomes a signature. The way you stand, the way you write your messages, the rhythm of your replies, the consistency of your composure. Over time, these patterns become a symbol others use to define you. And this is the secret. People trust patterns more than personalities. A man who is unpredictable in emotion, but predictable in rhythm, is more feared than one who is constantly loud. Predictability of structure breeds anticipation, and anticipation breeds influence. Symbolic behavior is deliberate repetition. You repeat your rituals, not for discipline's sake, but to create an image of inevitability. You are seen as reliable, unshakable, consistent under pressure. And once that image forms, it becomes armor. You no longer need to defend your authority, your symbol defends it for you. The third layer is myth. Myth is not fame, it is memory shaped into power. It begins when you stop explaining yourself. The powerful never narrate their journey, they let others construct it for them. They vanish strategically. They reappear sharper, colder, evolved. And people, left to wonder, begin to tell stories. Myth thrives on scarcity. You must not be too available, too accessible, too explainable. Familiarity dulls awe. The moment people think they understand you, you become ordinary. The powerful preserve distance, not physical, but psychological. They remain just out of reach. Myth requires silence as much as presence. Every disappearance builds curiosity. Every re-entry resets hierarchy. The less you show, the more they project. The more they project, the stronger your myth becomes. This is why Machiavelli warned princes to appear human, but never too human. Compassion, transparency, vulnerability, they are useful tools, but only when deployed as tactics. When they become habit, power dissolves. Influence depends on asymmetry. They must reveal, you must conceal. They must seek closeness, you must control proximity. True orchestrators of influence use the tension of uncertainty as leverage. When people are unsure of where they stand with you, they work harder to please you. They measure their words, adjust their tones, offer more than asked, because uncertainty breeds need. And that is the essence of Machiavellian control. Make others manage their own obedience. You will never have to demand respect if people are too preoccupied trying to earn it. But perception alone is not enough. It must be maintained subtly, quietly, relentlessly. That requires emotional discipline, so complete it becomes instinct. The powerful do not allow emotional transparency to distort their image. They understand that perception is fragile. A single, uncontrolled reaction can unravel months of quiet authority. So, they practice detachment, not suppression but distance. They feel everything, but they show nothing. Emotion becomes analysis. Pain becomes strategy. Joy becomes signal control. When they smile, it's calculated. When they laugh, it's intentional. Every outward expression becomes messaging. To orchestrate influence is to treat your emotions like diplomats. They appear only when serving purpose. That's why the powerful often appear cold, not because they lack humanity, but because they protect it. Warmth is not given, it is leveraged. Empathy is not free, it is currency. They understand the paradox. Those who give too much of themselves are consumed. Those who control their giving are revered. Machiavelli would call it governing affection. The modern world calls it emotional boundaries. But the effect is the same. People begin to respect what they cannot easily reach. Influence, when perfected, becomes effortless direction. The powerful man does not instruct people where to go. He embodies the direction itself. His clarity infects others. His pace sets theirs. His silence creates questions that only his approval can answer. In rooms filled with talkers, he becomes the axis, the unspoken center of gravity. And this, Machiavelli knew, is the ultimate form of leadership. The one who defines reality, defines obedience. To orchestrate influence is to decide what reality feels like in your presence. Is it calm, tense, focused, reverent? You design the emotional field others must adapt to. And the more consistent that field becomes, the more the world unconsciously conforms to it. Influence, then, is not what you do, it's what you are. The orchestra does not need to see the conductor's face to follow him. It only needs to feel the rhythm of his movements. So too, with the powerful. They orchestrate not by shouting above the noise, but by building a rhythm so unbreakable that the noise itself begins to move in time with them. That rhythm is the Machiavellian art, the invisible hand, the blueprint of command through perception, precision, and quiet inevitability. The weak fight for control. The powerful design the feeling of being controlled. And by the time the world notices, it's already moving to their song. Power, once obtained, must be maintained not through force, but through structure. Machiavelli understood that a throne built on charisma will collapse, but a throne built on systems endures. The powerful know this. Influence without structure is chaos wearing perfume. To orchestrate control, one must not only inspire obedience, but engineer inevitability. The weak rely on persuasion, the powerful rely on design. When your system is sound, people follow you because they have no other logical choice. They are not commanded, they are contained. They move within parameters you have drawn, thinking their freedom intact, while every step reinforces your dominance. That is the essence of subtle control, to make autonomy serve your order. The first mechanism is framing reality. He who defines the frame defines the outcome. This is the silent doctrine of every strategist, ruler, and manipulator of perception. People never question what feels natural. The powerful create the illusion of normalcy around their interests. They shape the language, the expectations, the reward structures, until opposition feels irrational. Frame, not through argument, but through context. If you must explain, you've already lost. Instead, shift attention, redefine the problem so that your solution becomes the only logical answer. Machiavelli wrote that men are moved by appearances as much as by realities. The modern form of this principle is narrative control. You do not need to change what is true. You only need to change what seems true. Control the questions being asked, and you control every answer that follows. That is why powerful people never fight within another's frame. They withdraw, redefine, and return only when the ground is theirs. The second mechanism is leverage. Leverage is not about domination. It's about knowing what others value more than themselves. Every man has a lever: ambition, fear, ego, desire. To orchestrate influence, you must learn to read these levers like instruments. You never pull them too hard, you tune them. The powerful never threaten directly. A direct threat reveals dependence. Instead, they hint. They let others imagine the consequences. Fear that is imagined is stronger than fear that is shown. When someone fears losing your favor, you have already mastered them. Machiavelli taught that fear is more reliable than love, but the enlightened ruler knows that fear alone is brittle. The highest form of control is a synthesis. They must both respect your calm and depend on your chaos. Give people just enough stability to feel secure and just enough volatility to feel cautious. This balance makes you the emotional axis of their world. When they need reassurance, they turn to you. When they need protection, they obey you. Dependence disguised as loyalty, that is true power. Leverage must be silent, patient, and precise. The more visible your manipulation, the more fragile your authority. The art is to make others move voluntarily in the direction you desire, to let them think it was their idea, to make obedience feel like self-expression. The third mechanism is selective generosity. The weak are generous to be liked. The powerful are generous to bind. Every gift creates a thread, every favor a chain. But to make generosity an instrument of power, it must be selective, rare, and weighted with meaning. Never give more than what reinforces hierarchy. Your generosity must remind them of your capacity, not your kindness. Give slowly, so gratitude becomes dependence. Withdraw abruptly, so absence becomes hunger. Machiavelli advised princes to be feared, but not hated. Selective generosity is how you achieve this equilibrium. It prevents hatred by disguising dominance as benevolence. The powerful give not to reward, but to define. Every act of kindness says, "You exist within my system." Every withheld favor says, "Remember who controls access." Over time, people will begin to measure their self-worth by your attention. That is when control ceases to require effort. It becomes emotional gravity. The fourth mechanism is distance. Presence commands respect, but absence creates obsession. Distance is not withdrawal, it is curation. The powerful understand that constant exposure weakens perception. Mystery strengthens it. You must appear rarely enough to make every appearance an event. The world moves faster than ever, but power still obeys the ancient law. Scarcity multiplies value. Withdraw strategically. Let others fill the silence with anticipation. Absence amplifies authority by reminding the world how much it depends on your presence. When you vanish, leave echoes behind symbols, words, systems that continue your influence without your body. The Roman emperors mastered this art. Their statues ruled cities they never entered. Their decrees outlived their voices. They became ideas rather than men. To orchestrate influence in the modern world, you must do the same. Transform yourself from individual into concept. People can argue with a person. They cannot argue with an idea. Distance transforms your image from impressive to inevitable. The fifth mechanism is control through succession. True power is not what you hold, it's what remains when you leave. Machiavelli wrote that the wise ruler prepares successors who depend on his foundation. The powerful ensure that even their absence perpetuates their influence. They design hierarchies that self-reinforce. Every promotion, every partnership, every alliance is built on conditional loyalty. Remove the leader, and the structure still bends toward his design. That is immortality in the language of influence. To achieve this, the powerful teach dependency, not independence. They reward competence that supports, not challenges. They cultivate followers who mistake service for ambition. Every system they build carries their rhythm. Control through succession is the art of embedding yourself into the DNA of the environment. You are not just obeyed, you are replicated. The final mechanism is the illusion of choice. This is where orchestration reaches perfection, when people believe they are choosing freely, but every path leads back to your favor. You have achieved mastery. Control, in its highest form, is invisible. The powerful do not forbid, they guide. They do not command, they imply. They create environments where the desirable choice aligns perfectly with their interests. And because others believe they are acting on their own will, resistance never forms. Machiavelli would have called this the ultimate deceit, to rule minds without appearing to rule at all. But deceit is too crude a word. It is design. It is choreography. When the world moves according to your architecture of options, you cease being a participant. You become the silent conductor of destiny. The weak seek permission to influence. The powerful build systems that make influence inevitable. Power is not noise. Power is arrangement. It is the cold precision of knowing that everyone, consciously or not, is dancing inside your design. And as you walk through the world, you do not need to prove it. You simply watch the rhythm you built play out in real time, every conversation, every decision, every alliance, humming to a tune only you can hear. That is control. That is the Machiavellian blueprint made flesh. There comes a moment in every strategist's life when control is no longer enough. To command the present is temporary. To command memory is eternal. The powerful understand this final evolution. Influence must outlive the influencer. Machiavelli's true genius was not in advising princes how to rise, but how to remain inevitable long after they are gone. Influence that survives time is not based on dominance, it is based on architecture of identity. The powerful construct versions of themselves that persist beyond presence, beyond proof, beyond flesh. They create a mythology of method, a living doctrine of perception and control that others continue to follow instinctively. That is legacy, when your rhythm becomes the world's habit. Legacy is not inheritance, it is infection. It is the slow, quiet embedding of your design into culture, into speech, into the instincts of those who never even met you. When your name becomes unnecessary, but your pattern continues, you have ascended beyond power, you have become principle. But to reach that point, the powerful must first understand the final discipline, detachment from outcome. The prince who needs results is still bound to the game. The ruler who plays for permanence operates differently. His mind does not cling to victory, it observes inevitability. He acts as if the outcome has already been decided, because within his design, it has. That detachment creates an aura of fate. People begin to believe that your decisions cannot fail. This is not luck, it is engineering. You have removed uncertainty from your psychology, and therefore, from their perception. Machiavelli wrote, "Fortune is a woman. To master her, one must beat her into submission. But in truth, fortune belongs not to the violent, but to the prepared." Power is not won through aggression, it is won through anticipation. The truly powerful never react to events. They create structures that render events irrelevant. That is the ultimate orchestration, to move the world by moving nothing at all. When you reach this stage, your influence stops requiring effort. It becomes environment. People breathe it, repeat it, enforce it, without realizing why. The most effective rulers in history, Caesar, Napoleon, Rockefeller, did not just dominate, they designed systems of thought. They left behind patterns that others willingly adopted. Their legacies were not carved in marble, but in mentality. The powerful know that fear and respect fade, but architecture endures. Institutions, ideologies, behaviors, these are the real monuments of command. The wise ruler embeds his rhythm into structure, so that even when the world changes, his framework remains the default way of seeing. Legacy is built through ritualization. Every pattern of control must become ritual before it can outlast you. That means repetition until instinct, precision until inheritance. You must teach your methods not by words, but by culture, through how people move, speak, plan, respond. The powerful and know that the most obedient subjects are those who don't realize they are following rules. So they embed ideology into habit. They transform obedience into identity. When a person begins to defend your system as if defending themselves, your influence has become eternal. But every legacy requires sacrifice. The price of power that lasts is personal invisibility. The more the design expands, the less its creator must be seen. The powerful disappear into their systems, not as victims, but as architects fulfilled. They become the quiet echo behind every command, the unseen author of every structure. This is why the most dangerous kind of ruler is the one who no longer desires acknowledgement. He has surpassed vanity. He no longer needs recognition to feel real. His satisfaction lies in watching the design persist, even in his absence. That is transcendence. the moment influence ceases to be ego and becomes order. Machiavelli hinted at this in his writings, though few understood. The wise ruler governs not with his hand, but with his absence. It is the absence that sustains power, because the less you are seen, the more the world fills in your shadow with reverence. To orchestrate lasting influence, one must learn the art of vanishing correctly. Disappear too early, and your design collapses. Stay too long, and your image begins to rot under its own weight. You must time your withdrawal like a final act, a silence so deliberate that it becomes legend. The weak fade by accident, the powerful fade by intention. They leave behind symbols, successors, doctrines enough to be remembered, but not enough to be replaced. They exit when the echo of their presence is stronger than their presence itself. That is immortality through orchestration. And yet, behind every great system, every myth, every doctrine of control, there lies a truth colder than marble. Power has no loyalty. The design that sustains you today may consume you tomorrow. The empire that bears your name may one day erase it. Influence is not a pet, it is a weapon. The wise learn to hold it lightly, to know that even mastery must be revisited, restructured, re-earned. That humility, not kindness, but perspective, is what separates the temporary ruler from the eternal one. Machiavelli never promised safety. He promised clarity, that the pursuit of control demands self-erasure, emotional detachment, and unyielding precision. To orchestrate influence is to sacrifice comfort, to become the mirror others define themselves through. And when the world looks into that mirror long enough, it forgets you were ever holding it. That is the cost of mastery. The world will mistake your restraint for coldness, your silence for arrogance, your patience for indifference. Let them. Misunderstanding is the camouflage of the powerful. When others waste energy defending their character, you continue building your systems, embedding your rhythm, conducting unseen. The prince does not need to be loved, nor hated. He needs only to be interpreted correctly by time. To orchestrate influence is to move beyond the need for applause. Applause is fleeting. Alignment is forever. And so, the powerful work not to be admired, but to be mirrored. They do not seek followers, they design successors who replicate their thinking unconsciously. That is how a man becomes an era. In the end, all true power returns to silence. The noise of command, the theater of dominance, the spectacle of success, all dissolve into stillness. What remains is design. What remains is structure. What remains is the quiet, unbreakable rhythm you built beneath the world's surface. You will not be remembered for your words, nor your conquests. You will be remembered for the way people began to behave after you. That is the legacy of influence, the unseen architecture of belief, the blueprint hidden in the walls of civilization. When others speak of fate, they are merely describing the rhythm you left behind. That is how the powerful orchestrate eternity.